Thank you very much for that very kind, overly generous introduction. I am delighted to be back in my alma mater. We're actually coming up to 30 years since I finished law school with my LLB. I am quite happy to mention that the University of Western Ontario also has a wonderful law school. I am, after all, the MPP for London West. All politics is local. I want to speak to you about a few things today, a few things that affect every single one of us, but things that we might not think of every day or that we might take for granted every day. I mean, today is a beautiful day, sun's shining. It's a day not unlike every other day. There are some people who will experience great happiness today. There are some people who will experience loss and sadness. There are some pressing issues that have been affecting the society for many years that will be resolved today. Others will arise. We have a perspective on today, though, that is unique. We live in Ontario. We live in Ontario in Canada, which has to be the best place in the world to live, and a remarkable privilege to live here. And when you think about what makes Ontario special, what makes Canada special, there are many things that come to mind. But one of them I know will be that no matter who you are, no matter where you've come from, no matter how long you've been here, no matter what your roots are, you know your rights and freedoms will be protected and respected here in ways that they might not be elsewhere. And you know that not simply because it is the fashion of the moment. You know that because it has been part of who we are for decades. For decades. We are a unique society. I mean, they talk about the magic of the Olympics. We're all looking forward to the Olympics. All looking forward to the Olympics in Canada, just a few months away. The magic of the Olympic experience is that it brings people from all over the world. Don't you hear that phrase? It brings people from all over the world together in one place at one time for about 2.5 weeks. Here in Ontario, we have that experience every minute of every hour of every day. It is what we are. I mean, every minute of the day, people make the statement they're coming to Ontario and to Canada. So we have that Olympic experience every single day. Every single day. An experience based on a foundation that everybody has the right to live freely and to be treated with dignity and respect. And a recognition on each and every one of us that we will not let those principles slide for a moment. So has it always been thus? Is it something that just happened recently? Is it something that's come easily? Is it something that we should take for granted? We are here in the Newton Rowell room. Now, you all know about Newton Rowell, of course. You're in the room, so you must. Distinguished for many, many reasons. But one of them was that he was an advocate on the Persons case. You remember the Persons case? Women couldn't sit in the Senate, or weren't being allowed to sit in the Senate, part of our nation's parliamentary tradition. So 5 women said, this isn't right. We're going to challenge this. The reason they were told is that women weren't persons in the eyes of the law. And they challenged it, and the Privy Council, overruling other determinations, said, well, of course you are. So women were allowed to sit in the Senate. It was the courage of the 5 women and the determination of their advocates that made that happen. Oh, I have no doubt. I have no doubt. I wasn't there, but I have no doubt that when they said they should be allowed to sit in the Senate, more than one person said, well, we have a wonderful society. We are Canada. Just leave it alone. We have a wonderful society. We are Canada. You're being a bit of a nuisance. You know, I had breakfast this morning. It was an uneventful breakfast. I sat down. I had no trouble being served. I had extra coffee. And I enjoyed myself, as I do whenever I'm eating. It hasn't always been as easy for people to have breakfast or have a cup of coffee. You know, there was a gentleman who served in the Second World War, and he came back from the Second World War, and he came back to his home in Dresden, Ontario. Now, you know Dresden, Ontario, because Dresden, Ontario was the terminus of the Underground Railroad. That great commitment of Americans and Canadians, or those who were not yet Canadians, to free people from the bonds of slavery. And its terminus was in Dresden, Ontario. But this gentleman was tired of eating at the back door of restaurants. He was tired of not being served if he went through the front door of restaurants. And so he went to a restaurant and wanted to be served. And he wasn't. It was McKay's restaurant in Dresden, Ontario, the terminus of the Underground Railroad. You see, Hugh Burnett was a black man, and they didn't serve black men in this cafe in Dresden, Ontario, in the terminus of the Underground Railroad in 1948 in Ontario. He didn't think that was right, so he did what it took great courage to do. He organized a petition. He got 117 odd names on it, saying they should be served. But there was a vote, and the municipality voted 4-1 against that. But he didn't stop. He kept agitating. One of his mottos was agitate, 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 make alliances. So he kept at it. And he kept at it. And he got some allies. And one of the allies that he got was an advocate by the name of Boralaskin, who, along with another advocate by the name of David Lewis, helped write some legal briefs that they submitted to the government of Ontario. And they submitted those briefs to the government of Ontario, and they continued their agitation. In fact, the government of Ontario was moved to bring in a new piece of legislation. A piece of legislation that guaranteed that you would be served according to the usual custom of the place, so that if it was a restaurant, you got served regardless of whether you were white, black, or where you were from. But of course, the law doesn't always mean that things change instantly. So Hugh Burnett and a number of colleagues had to get the law to become a reality in Dresden, Ontario. And so they went down and they again sat and wanted to be served. And the story is that the owner was very unhappy. And in fact, at one point was wielding a meat cleaver that he chopped quickly and continuously on the chopping block. Now, there were some members of the press there who were able to take pictures and who were able to report. Can you imagine the courage? Can you imagine the courage of Hugh Burnett and his colleagues going into a place they were not welcome?